Welcome to Infertility and Me Podcast, a show that amplifies diverse stories about the struggles of infertility and fertility in a safe space. Our goal is to normalize fertility stories that validate, give hope, and create a community where no one is left silently suffering. Hey, you guys. Welcome to Infertility and Me Podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Thank you for listening. Today's guest is Kyla Saphir. She is an early childhood educator, yoga instructor for pre, during, and postnatal care, as well as a published author and wife and mom to her almost 6-year-old daughter. Kyla has written a book for children and moms and dads of only one child, as well as incorporating her secondary infertility story within that book. And it's in the show details. So you guys can check that out and support and purchase and pass it along to some people that you may know as well. But today, Kyla talks to us today about her struggles in living with fibroids, some very large ones at that, and then also her secondary infertility experience and how going from being a fertile woman to an infertile woman because of her fibroids and the amount of risks that she would take in going through IVF and having a myomectomy and then possibly having a sibling. She just decided, her and her husband, that they would stop trying for a sibling after her fibroids were removed because it would weaken and diminish the stability of pregnancy if she became pregnant through IVF after having her fibroids removed, and it will cause another set of risks and complications. And so she tells us about that today in this episode. And at the time when she started trying to conceive for a sibling, she was already 37. And after 2 years for trying for that sibling and getting the news about, she also had a blocked fallopian tube. And so her and her husband just decided, hey, we'll just stop. Well, I'm going to get my fibroids taken care of, but we're going to stop because the risks are just too great for my body. And she also states that they're from the South. They live in the South, and it seems like everyone has 3 to 5 kids. And so the pressure was on thick and wanting and desiring that second baby, as well as her yoga studio where she had classes for moms who were trying to conceive, who were pregnant, and also postnatal care and struggling with being of support to them while also needing support herself through secondary infertility. And so this episode is for you, friend, if you have already conceived through IVF or any other form of treatment and or naturally. And also if you are considering trying to conceive for a sibling and you've already gotten the bundle from reproductive assistance and or naturally, and you're having some struggles and you feel like you are all alone and thinking that you're crazy for having this strong desire for wanting more children. And the bottom line is this, you guys, your life is yours to live. No one can tell you what that should look like. That's only for you and your spouse, if you have one, to decide. And so know that whatever you decide, it's okay. And Kyla also reminds us in this episode that sometimes we just have to accept the situation for exactly what it is and then make a heartfelt, sound decision from there. And so today, friends, I hope that you will get the comfort and validation that you need. And we will be back in just a second with Kyla. We're back, you guys, Infertility and Me Podcast with our girl Kyla Saphir on the podcast today, talking about her story through secondary infertility and now being a one and done mom. Mm-hmm. Some of you will relate, some of you may not, but just in case this scenario ever happens to you, you'll know how to get through it and do it with class, dignity, and grace as much as possible. We try, but thank you, Kyla, so much again, my love, for coming onto the show and speaking to us and giving us your time and your energy.
Yeah, thank you, Monique. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
How did you meet your husband, this doctor? This handsome guy, this tall, handsome gentleman.
Well, we actually met in middle school. Ironically, right. But I was the older woman, so we didn't start dating right away. No,
How
I was in 8th grade and he was in 6th grade. And I kind of knew him. My older sisters and his older sisters were in the same height. They were in the same classes in high school. So we our families knew each other. But I didn't see him for years. Like, I knew he existed, but his oldest sister and my oldest sister were best friends. And when she started having kids in Chicago, she invited us to like the birthday parties. And so my husband would be there. And I remember when her son turned 1, my husband was at the party and I was like, who is this tall drink of water? Like, he's 6'2" now. He doesn't have the bowl cut, no lisp, like I remember him from 6th grade. So it was kind of funny. But at the time he had a steady girlfriend that I knew about because our families all talked. And then at the second birthday party, though, he was single and our eyes met over the piñata, like it was romance at a second birthday party. But yeah, he asked for my number and we started dating. And a couple years later, we got married and here we are.
Yes, that is so freaking cool. Yes. See, this is why I asked this question, because I can get into the details of you guys' business without being
and you never know what you're going to
get.
Huh?
Exactly. I love stories like that, especially when there's like a transformation in the way someone looks a little bit different. Like they're like, now you're my type. We can do it now. This is great.
Also like he was in his medical residency. I'm like, okay, he's got a plan. This man is,
Yes, he's well put together.
Right. Yes. I've been dating other guys that weren't quite there. I was like, okay.
Yep, womp. Yes. That's exactly how it feels.
Right. You're like, jackpot. Okay, good.
Yes, indeed. That is so beautiful. Oh, I love it. So you guys have your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going good. Hubby's now finishes residency and being a doctor is everything that he imagined it would be. And you guys are living your best life. You guys are living your best life. You're still teaching. Right? Were you still teaching after you had her, or had you already kind of phased out?
She was born in Seattle, and then he got the job here in South Carolina. So we moved a couple times with the infant, which was interesting. It almost made having an infant not as hard because we had so much other stuff going on. We actually moved home to Chicago for the summer after she was born. He had a few months before we started, so we wanted to be close to family. And then we moved with like a 3-month-old and had to establish ourselves in a new city. So I wasn't teaching. I was an early childhood teacher before, but that transition was just a lot. And I really wanted to be home with her. I have my master's in early childhood. So I wanted to watch her develop and grow. But I decided my other passion is yoga. So I decided during that first year to get certified teach yoga. And I specifically liked pre and postnatal yoga. So that's what I was doing the first couple of years while we were in Colombia.
Yes, I remember reading that in your bio for your book. And I really thought it was special that you were helping moms who were trying to get pregnant and or were already pregnant and postnatal and everything with your yoga studio. And I've always enjoyed yoga myself too. I used to do a lot of it as well. And then I also have a special place in my heart for early childhood educators because my mom is one. What point did you guys decide that you were ready to start trying to conceive for a sibling after your daughter was born? How old was she when you started trying for a sibling?
She was almost 2. So at that time I was 37. I had her when I was 35. So we're like, okay, we can't wait too long. But because I had her in the first try, I was like, all right, we're probably happen again. I had fibroids before I got pregnant. I knew about that. And then they grow when you're pregnant, especially that first trimester because of the estrogen and blood flow. So one grew really big. We named it leiomyoma. That's the technical name for fibroids. And so I knew I had them, but and they were monitoring me a lot more, but basically my pregnancy was pretty smooth. I had some issues, and I was able to birth her vaginally, unmedicated birth, like no C-section, which can, happen, or preterm labor. There's a lot of risk factors with fibroids in pregnancy. And I was really lucky. I didn't really have any. So after 6 months, after you give birth, they say check about 6 months later to see if the fibroids go down. And mine did. It shrunk a little bit from 10 centimeters to 7. The biggest one, I have about 3 or 4. But the doctors didn't say, they were like, yeah, start trying, see what happens. So we started and nothing happened. And at that age, after 6 months, you're supposed to start, doing more tests to see what's going on. And they did everything. They did an ultrasound, they did blood work, tested my husband, everything was fine. So I was like, okay, this seems, strange, but maybe it could take longer. We were lucky on the first shot with our daughter. So we tried for a couple more months then, actually, but about a year in, and I was like, you know what? I need to take my mind off this because it's a lot and it puts a lot of pressure on your marriage. And people started asking, which is like a whole other thing. And my daughter started asking for a sibling at around 3 because all her friends were having them. And it just like was this weight and like wanting this and kind of thinking each month. And, as you know, you've been through fertility struggles, that it can be really hard. So we got a puppy instead. We bought a sibling for our child, and she has taught me all kinds of things about patience and endurance and love, and almost giving her for adoption, but we kept her. So she's a special dog. Yeah. Anyway, that kind of put us, gave a little breather from this pressure of having another kid, and we took a little break during that time.
Did you get your fibroids removed before seeing a reproductive endocrinologist, or did you go to the endocrinologist first and they recommended you get them removed? Because sometimes that happens as well,
Yeah, totally. So they kind of assumed, people I talked to, all the doctors, I actually talked to a midwife too, because I was interested in doing a home birth or something different. I had a hospital birth with my daughter, but I wanted to do a little different way. And the midwife seemed everything was fine. I told her my risk factors and things and my age. But about a year and a half in, I was like, something's going on. This is clearly not working. We were not protecting anything. And so I finally was like, okay, let's see a reproductive endocrinologist. But I wasn't wanting to do IVF or any other procedures, or I didn't know about surgery yet. So I was kind of hesitant because I was like, if this baby doesn't come somewhat naturally, then I think we'll be okay, but whatever. It's a whole emotional roller coaster of being okay with things and not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I went in, I had an appointment to do a couple tests, an SIS, which is like a saline solution they put in, and then they do ultrasound to see. I did that on a Tuesday. So she said, she looked and was like, okay, it looks like, your fibroids are there, but that shouldn't be impacting anything. We could probably remove this one, like one smaller one laparoscopically. I was like, great. So she kind of gave me hope that it would be this, kind of simple procedure. This wasn't the greatest reproductive endocrinologist I've ever met, because then on Thursday I had an HSG, which is the hysterosalpingogram, which I don't know if you got that done too.
Oh, but, yeah, girl.
Okay, you know about this. So then they put a dye in and they x-ray you. So it's a little bit more specific. They can tell more about the uterine lining. They can see how the ovaries are doing, fallopian tubes. And it turned out that one of my fallopian tubes was blocked by I think the big fibroid was blocking that one. And also just my uterine lining. It had been good, but I think it's misshapen because of this huge fibroid on the side. Like, so like nothing could implant.
Yeah.
Leo was big. He was like, your uterus is 7 centimeters. And so the fibroid was 7 centimeters. So seeing it on
They're fighting for space.
Yes. It was like, just like eating it. It was like a T-Rex, like trying to eat my uterus.
Get out of the way, buddy. Get out of the way. Get out of here. It's my turn to shine.
Yeah.
Fibroids are like ruthless, okay? They will take over your entire reproductive system, just like endometriosis. Two of the worst kinds of diseases to have to deal with and suffer through. My mom had fibroids, and they were like humongous, okay? Huge freaking humongous.
Yeah. Yes. And the fact that so many women have them and it causes so many issues, like what is happening? I feel like this can't have been, it is kind of common and they're usually benign. They don't really cause problems, but a lot of women have problems, especially Black women. Like it's so common.
I just feel like I have like all of these conspiracy theories that are like backed by science, as well as just paying attention to the history of the United States and what we consume and how we consume it and the materials,
environment. Interesting, because I'm like, what causes them? They don't know. How do I prevent them? They don't know. I'm like, I don't understand how there's no, again, research. Like, why is money not being put toward this disease that affects so many? It's 80% of women over 50 will have them.
And what's so funny is that the research is happening and it's kind of like hush hush. It's like they almost don't want to tell us what's really happening here.
This should be preventative care. It's all reactionary. And that's exactly what it is. Like they're going to have to do surgery. You're going to have to take medicine. There's all these things that come if you don't have that preventative care. And where we are, like my husband sees so many sick people just because they don't have basic health care. It's really sad. I mean, whatever. There's all kinds of politics behind it too, in terms of expanding Medicaid and Medicare, which they don't want to do. Like, oh God.
And it's a business, especially if you talk about hospital settings. It's a business.
100%. That's why it's hard. My husband's job is real intense because of that. He loves the patients, but it's all the system that's broken.
Yes, it takes the joy out of it. Yeah, it really takes the joy out of it. Yeah.
Okay.
We went off on a tangent, you guys, but I'm sure many of you feel the same way that we
Yes.
do, because I've had similar conversations in private DMs with
Yeah.
people, you know. But I guess hopefully we'll do better. But I guess that's why we're here having these
Yeah.
conversations.
I want to do it like I'm like my next life. I'm going to do fibroid research and like interview women. And it's
Yes.
interesting. I'm from the south side of Chicago and like near where Michelle Obama grew up, and she also had fertility issues. Two of my siblings also have had fertility issues. I'm like, environment is probably huge. I'm like, I want to study neighborhoods and see, you know, what are the rates of women having infertility issues and stuff there. So
Yeah,
that's my
interesting.
next gig.
Yeah, I could see you doing that and getting like what is it? A public health, a
Yeah,
master's in
maybe.
public health.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's okay. I like this. I like this.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Children's book to public health. It can happen one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, especially since you're already so passionate about the fertility community as well as being a mom
Yes.
of one and stuff and working through
Yeah.
secondary infertility.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So I
Interesting.
had this meeting with the appointment for the HSG, and the woman was like, "Oh, we can't do that simple procedure." She basically told me, okay, while I'm still on the table with my like, you know, parts hanging out, it's just like a little gown. She's like, not like let's go talk in the office or something, or you know, when you get cleaned up. No, she's like, the fibroid's so big and blocking everything, you're gonna have an open myomectomy, which is like an abdominal. They cut it open and take out the fibroid, which is a inpatient procedure, like 2 to 5 days. You have to stay at the hospital, and a 6 to
Yeah,
8 week recovery. Then you have to wait 6 months for your uterus to heal to even try. She's like, you'll probably have to do IVF. I was like, okay. And then after that, you have to have a C-section because of uterine rupture possibility. I was
exactly.
like, what? So like, this is from Tuesday where I had hope, like a little small procedure might help, to basically you're infertile. Like basically with all these interventions and all this expensive and time consuming things, you maybe can have another kid. So I'm like sitting there, and then she
Mhm.
left the room. I was like, what? I'm like bawling. And luckily the
I
nurse is
hate
with
when they
me.
do that.
I was like, it was literally
Yeah,
the worst bedside manner that I've ever had. I was like, you
yeah,
just told me the most devastating news and bounced. And like, not even like, let's talk in the office with your husband, you know, like, let's talk about
right.
possibilities. It was like, this is what's going to happen. So I just, you know, I was like devastated, went home, talked to my family. We were very open with my daughter about what was going on because she had been asking, and because we talk openly about
Mhm,
our
mhm.
bodies and things like that. So we discussed it over time, and I was like, I can't do this. Like my daughter was 3, our puppy was 6 months old and crazy. My husband works really, it's like just no schedule. Basically, he works
Yeah,
hours. Like
it's
right now, he's
real
on call
sporadic,
for a
right?
week.
His flexibility.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
he's a neurosurgeon, so like his schedule is just insane all the time.
Oh,
So I wouldn't
wow.
have his
Yeah.
support. We don't have any family where we live. I was like, how I couldn't, and I was starting my business. My yoga business was growing. I was teaching workshops and classes all over the city. I didn't have my own studio. That was kind of my dream before COVID messed all that up. But so anyway, this happened. I was like, I don't, you know, like that's a lot, and financially, it's a lot. You know, time, giving up my body for all this, for you know, like the small chance. I was 39 at the time when I got this diagnosis, so I was like, I went from trying to conceive to infertile in like a day, and that just blew me away. I had no, I wasn't thinking that was a possibility, honestly. Like I knew that we were struggling, but so yeah, that's when it really hit me, and the reality of all of it. I was like, okay. Yeah, and then just kind of like slowly letting go of the fact like we had saved all my daughter's baby stuff, and so I slowly
Mhm.
started giving it to families and friends, my yoga moms, some neighbors, my maternity clothes, and that was kind of like cathartic and kind of cleansing, because you have this dream of what it's supposed to be like. And we had a 4-bedroom house, so we could have our family visit, and then two rooms for
Absolutely.
the kids, and all these things that you kind of set up because you expect this to happen. So
Mhm,
having to
mhm.
let all
Well,
that
see, you've
go.
done everything else you ever said you were gonna do,
Yeah. And I'm like
you
A-type. I'm
know?
like, oh, we're gonna do this.
Yeah,
We're gonna get this done.
yeah,
Like, let's do this. Right. And it's
yeah.
really shocking when things don't go the way that you expect.
Mhm, mhm.
And I actually didn't never heard the term secondary infertility. Like the doctors never said that
No,
term.
they
I
don't.
just assumed infertility. But a friend of mine who happens to be a doula and works in the birth community, she was like, oh, I was telling her my story. She's like, oh, you have secondary infertility. And even just naming it was validating. Like, oh, this is a thing. Like, I honestly didn't know anyone else. I knew no one going through this. So I felt very isolated. And I had all these people asking me about having another kid. And I was like, I'm trying, you know, like, or get out of my business. So yeah, it was a lot
Yeah, and
process.
so did you ever go back to the RE after your removal of fibroids and all that, and then the terrible bedside manner that you had? Did you ever go back at all?
Oh
And
no.
No,
She
okay.
she was like, "Just set this up in September," or this is August. She was like, "Okay, in September you
Okay.
can set up without." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing like no, nothing you said sounds good to me." But the fact that you asked that, and then this past January, I decided to get the big one removed because it was causing me issues. And kind of thinking
Wow.
about my fertility, but also just like I want to be done. Like mentally, it was blocking me. Physically, it caused problems. Um, so I got, but not the open. The open myomectomy is really intense. So I talked to my gynecologist, and she recommended some other surgeons who, OB/GYN surgeons who do a laparoscopic robotically assisted
Yeah.
procedure,
That's what
and
my
that is
mom had. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
that one is so much better. It's outpatient, so I was in the morning, and my husband took me home, and then it's about a 2-week recovery. And it was the first couple of days were hard, but not even because of the surgery. I mean, the incisions hurt a little bit, but it was the anesthesia, and then they have to put gas
Yep.
in you to blow up your abdomen, so they can see everything. And that was the hard part. Like a couple of days of that were bad, and then I feel great. Like literally, was this like weight lifted out of my gut, and so I did get it, but not with that RE, and more just for my medical health, like my personal health.
What's interesting about your story as well, because you were catering and serving essentially
Hmm.
pregnant moms and moms to be and moms postnatal. So
Yeah.
were there times before COVID, of course, when you
Hmm.
were forced to have to stop, right? Were there times where you ever considered leaving the industry altogether because of your own desires to expand your family, weighing so heavy and being around all these, for some,
Hmm.
and maybe not all, some
Hmm.
fertile women within
Yeah.
your studio?
Yeah. I mean, you put it perfectly. That's exactly how it felt. Like after I got my diagnosis in August of 2019, and I was pretty open with some of the moms. Like they were my friends. They're wonderful. Like all these moms were kind of going through an experience that I had. I already had my
Yeah.
daughter, and they were just so supportive as a community together. And this is pre-COVID, so we were all meeting together for our prenatal classes, and then a lot of them would give birth, and then they come to my postnatal classes, which was great because then you kind of
Yeah.
get back into your body. You can bring
Continues,
baby.
yeah.
You form this community of other moms. Like, it was wonderful, and I loved it. That was what was the hard part was. But you're right. Like it became the day I got my diagnosis, I had to teach that night. And I was the only woman or the only instructor teaching pre and postnatal in the town I live in. So I was like, I felt like I had to. I mean, I probably should have called
Mhm.
off class, but I went anyway. And like, I just kind of, pulled through and got through the
Yeah.
class. And again, I love the women. I really didn't want them to miss it. Like my classes were growing, and they told me how much they enjoyed it. And it felt good to, move your body and prepare for labor. Um, so that was really intense. And then COVID hit that next March where all the studios shut down, and I moved some classes online. But it was almost like a breather. I could like, okay, I did some class online, and then I just kind of stopped because online it was just so different. It's hard to have a community, and the moms couldn't interact. And I wasn't very, I was using like my computer, my phone. I hadn't set up for that. Like you're not trained to do tech stuff. Most
Yeah.
people, during COVID had to flip to like Zoom and stuff. So um, yeah, it was kind of nice to just it was hard. It was hard to see that all these pregnant people and young, with their little babies. But I also saw like how hard it was. Like some of them did have problems conceiving. So I know a lot of them dealt with infertility and treatments. So I knew it wasn't easy for everyone.
Yeah.
Um, and then I saw them, postnatally, like 6 weeks after they're exhausted and they're, figuring out breastfeeding and all these things. And I was like, ooh, that looks really hard. So it was like a little bit of both, a little bit of like, oh, the reality is I like you forget how hard it is at the beginning. And,
Yeah, you did.
um, you kind of push that out of your mind when you try to have another. But for me, I think now it's harder when people have a second kid. When they have their first, I'm excited for them. But the second really like gets me because I think that's something I can't have. So
Know that feeling all too well.
yeah. So I had to
Get
give up,
me
but
on
I
the
was
right day.
passionate.
It's like they get you on the right day and you'll break down in
Yes.
tears, okay?
Yes.
Be
And social
gentle
media is
with
like the
me.
worst. It's like all
Oh
the,
my
birth announcements,
gosh.
pregnancy. I'm like, I had
Yeah.
to get off. I got off that too, which was helpful. And then I got therapy because I was like, I'm dealing with this. I don't really know how to process it all. And my therapist talked to me about my daughter's experience too, because she kept asking, like literally every day would ask for a sibling, and she would pretend she knew what my work was, and so she would pretend to be pregnant, and she would have 10 babies around the house, and I knew it was like important to her, and I was like, it feel like I was letting her down, and also my husband, like he's one of four, I'm one of five, like we have these big
Wow.
families, and so it was.
Okay.
He never put pressure. He understood and was like, yeah, we have one great kid, like,
That's
and she's getting
great.
easier each year. They get easier, less they need less help and they're out of diapers and all these things that he's like, it's okay. He was very supportive in that, but it was also hard. I wasn't sure I
That's
wanted to give
wonderful.
up, but there was like no out.
It's always a back and forth,
Yes,
You're
it
like the
is this.
bobblehead. That's how I feel
Yes.
sometimes. It's like bobblehead. Do I really want to? No, maybe not today. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe,
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And you don't
And
know
then,
why. Like some days I'm fine, and some days I'm like, no, I
mm-mm.
really want this. Sometimes I'm like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
um,
just, and it's so funny because a lot of people who, like you, have had really good, intense therapy say that they still bobbling back and forth,
oh
but
yeah,
they know how to manage it better. Would you say that your
exactly.
therapy helped you to manage it better? And
Hmm.
would you encourage others in the community to seek help if they came to you and say, "Kyla, did therapy work for you in getting
Oh
past fertility?" What would you
yeah,
recommend to them as
a
far as
hundred
that's
percent.
concerned?
I would also I looked up someone who, a lot of the therapists will put what their specialties are. Like some people are dealing with loss or, trauma and infertility, like they'll put that. And I think finding someone
Yeah.
specifically who either deals with people with it or has gone through it, I think that's helpful too. 100%. I feel like you need that
Mm.
outside perspective. And she not only helped me, so she told me like, write down your feelings, also write down your daughter's feelings because it's a loss for her. She had wanted this too, and I had never really seen it that way. I knew she was
Mm.
struggling, but I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And that's the idea for my book came in because I started looking for books about secondary infertility for me, and then secondary infertility and like wanting a sibling for a kid, and there was
Yeah.
nothing. I found one book about for me like a mom's book, and it was only in ebook form, which was fine. But in the end, she
Mhm.
has a second kid, like in the epilogue. I was like, are you kidding me? So I read this whole thing, like, yes, I feel you. I feel you. I'm going through the
Mm.
same thing. And she's like, oh, by the way, I was able to conceive again, which just like broke my heart. I'm like, this is not just,
Yeah.
so I felt a little
Because it's
let down
almost
on that
like,
one.
it's almost like when you connect with, say somebody like how we connected online, right? And
Yes.
then you connect with a book, because especially for us 80s and 70s babies, like we're all
Yeah.
about the books. Like I need the
Yeah.
physical copy of it. I need to
Yes.
smell it.
Turn the pages.
I need to lick my finger and do the whole motion,
Yes.
right? So when
Yes.
I understand that when you say in the epilogue, she says, "Oh, but by the way, I ended up having
Yeah.
another baby." It's like, God darn it. I
Yeah.
thought I
Yeah. We were in the
thought
same boat. I
I
thought we were like
thought we were
sisters,
there.
this. Yeah.
Yes, I
No.
thought we were, and then it turns out that
Yeah.
although they could relate, they're out of it.
Yeah.
It's different for them now,
4 years, this whole process about 4 years, and
Yeah.
just being ready to do it, to write it down
So
and put it
grateful
out in the
that you
world. Like no
actually
one knew
took
it. Like
your
besides my
idea
immediate
and
family
put
and
it
some
on
really close
paper,
friends, no
and
one
as
knew I was
long
going
as
through
well
this.
as just too from the
Honestly, so when
only
I
you
put it out
pod.
there, I
And
got so much support and
so I'm
positive
just so proud of
feedback,
you
and
guys
other people
doing it,
telling me their
because
struggles. I was
continually
like,
doing
wow, it's
things
like
that
really opening up this
somebody
dialogue.
might say,
Other people
well,
telling me they want to write
I don't
children's
know
books
if
and
there's
like
a
a lot of
market for
people like
this.
child
Yeah,
processing.
I think a lot of
And
people
especially
you
like
be
me,
selling
publisher.
courses, there's not a lot of market for it, but then you find out that there's a huge market for it.
Yeah.
A
No
huge
one else has written
market.
this.
Yes,
Kind of give up the
exactly.
yoga. Like, you wrote a
Exactly.
review. Thank
Wonderful.
you. You the proof that
Oh,
thank you so much.
yeah, and it was your
For
the book is
supporting it.
great.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I
amazing.
was
Your book
doing.
is
And so I
fantastic.
took,
I love baby
yeah,
for
that was my other
sure.
baby. Exactly. And I spent so much
Mhm.
time and energy into it and, marketing myself and teaching all over the city. Um, so giving that up and finding like another way, another outlet or creative thing that I really wanted to do. And so this book has kind of translated into that, which I'm so grateful for, because I tried to go back to teaching and it was just too much. Like my daughter was still needed me so much, and I was exhausted, and I tried it for a few months. I was like, I can't do this. This is not, I'm in my 40s. I'm like, I'm too old for, being back in that right
Yeah.
now. So I needed like another space to feel like confident about what I can do. And I'm so excited this book. And then I have
Yeah.
some ideas for other series I'm going to do. So it's like a nice new path for me.
This
And
is
I have so much
wonderful.
support. You've been like
Yeah.
wonderful support.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I love, love, love supporting you
Yeah.
guys, and because somebody had to support me too, when
Mhm,
I first got
mhm.
started with the podcast and getting the
Yeah.
word out about it and helping women find tribe and community and such, and
Mhm. And only child
it's not
families, like, that's
easy.
been nice. No.
Yeah, and then I feel like the 2 go hand in hand, and so when you were like, "I'll gladly come on the show and talk about secondary infertility," I was like, "This is
Yeah.
fantastic." Number
Yeah.
1, because there's a lot of women who struggle with secondary infertility and feel out of place
Mhm.
in the community because they feel like, "Well, I'm kinda sorta fertile, but,
Yeah.
this second time was a little
Yes.
rough,"
Right, second or
And then
third, yeah.
exactly, and then for people like you or I who tried for seconds and it didn't happen, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, and also just coming to terms with being an only child family, like that's a whole nother, this is a whole nother
Exactly.
process. Especially, I don't know if you have siblings, but I
I
come from
do,
5.
but from a different mom. My dad was married
Oh,
to their
okay.
mother first. And so
Okay.
I am my mom's only child. And so I
Okay.
grew up in the house by myself, but I
Okay.
didn't want to have just one kid. I wanted two. I really wanted
Yeah.
to.
You don't
And
expect it. It's like this whole
mm-mm,
mental shift of like
yeah,
everything. But then becoming to like with Just the Only You podcast and the community of women, I'm on Patreon with them too. So it's like we
exactly.
get to communicate with each other and support each other and talk about,
Yeah, it's
things that go on,
amazing.
how easy it is to have one kid versus multiple. Like it is like, or
Yeah.
honestly, just appreciating
Mm-hmm.
that and also being present
Yeah.
more. Like once I kind of let go of we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have another kid, I could like really be present with my daughter and our family and not be
That's right.
distracted by what could be or whatever. It
Yeah.
was really I didn't
It's
want to.
yeah.
I don't want to do it anymore. I was like, okay, I need to just be here. And yoga is all about being present in the moment. So I'm
Acceptance is
trying to
coming up a
practice that.
lot in these
Yeah.
last few episodes I've had. Like
Yes.
everybody has literally come on without me asking about
Yeah.
acceptance and they've said it. So I feel like acceptance is
Yeah.
our word for this year. Like we're going to accept
Mm-hmm.
where we are and we're
Yes.
just going to deal with it head on
Mm-hmm.
and we're not going to try to bypass it.
Yeah. And
And
rebirth. This is my
and
rebirth this year,
yeah,
2022. I feel like for the world, like, okay,
for
we're out of this
everybody, like
COVID
COVID just
darkness.
like shut us
Yes.
down and then
Mm-hmm.
like we
We
had to
gotta
all go
be
through like
born.
this butterfly cocoon phase
Yes.
and
Yes. The
here we
chrysalis.
are. Yeah,
Yes.
so now we're coming back out and we got our
Exactly.
wings flapping and stuff, but I feel
Yeah.
like the connection with your story and
Mm-hmm.
now being a mom of one and done,
Yeah.
having dealt with secondary infertility for 2 years, 2, 3 years, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important because there's so many I'm seeing a lot of people in the community getting pregnant, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're now ready to start for that sibling, and
Oh, got it.
so I, just that's why I had to get you on, and I was so glad that you were able to get on quickly,
Yeah.
and because
Well,
there's a
because
lot
it's
of what
50% of infertility is secondary.
yeah.
Did you know? Like that is,
Yeah, I
I
did,
learned about that
and when
too.
I
Like,
learned
oh my
about that, I
gosh.
was like, "What? You kidding
Yeah.
me? There's
Yeah.
that many women who get pregnant once and then can't do it the second time?
Yeah. And some of it is
Wow."
like they did IVF the first time and can't, like some
Yeah,
had
yeah, for
assisted
sure.
reproductive technology for sure. Like that is obviously a huge portion of it
Mhm.
too. But yeah. So I don't know what your journey was with second, but like it's hard because you kind of have
Yeah.
this expectation of no one, most people, at least in the only you community, majority we're not expecting just one. And then whatever
Mhm.
circumstance happened. Some are like, I wanted one, my husband and I talked about it, or my partner and I talked about it, and here we are, and they're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
for me, it was a journey to get to that point of like really appreciating what we do have. And yeah, my daughter's gonna be in first grade in the fall. I'm like, okay, she's like
Mm,
grown up. I mean, I'm just
yeah.
the baby phase, but
Yeah.
I'm also like,
Mhm.
it's amazing to watch them grow, and she's starting to read and do all these cool things. And
Mm.
as an early childhood educator, I love seeing it. I love this
Yeah.
period. So
She's got the perfect
I'm excited.
mom, you guys, okay? There
Oh,
will
thank you.
never be she won't have any issues in school, okay?
Yeah.
Because
She's very
nobody will be
social
able
too. No,
wonderful.
no
She'll have
stereotypes.
a
No only child stereotypes in our family. She's loves playing with our
yes.
neighbors. Our dog is her sissy. She calls her
Oh,
sister.
her and Omar would have a blast.
Oh
Omar's very
yeah.
extroverted too,
Yes. It's great. It's
and,
so easy. I'm like, oh.
yes, I don't have to do anything, like, I'm the more ambiverted, introverted person in my family, so
Mhm.
I meet a lot of people because of my son, because
Yeah.
he talks to anybody.
He makes you social. Mom, you're gonna
Yes,
socialize today.
he has taught me how to do it, okay? That's how I'm
Yeah.
still doing the podcast and doing all them crazy
Yes.
videos on Instagram because he's
I
taught
love it.
me how to be more
Oh,
extroverted in my baby,
he's
so I
love that.
understand,
Yeah.
but if there's a word for the community that you would like to say for those who are thinking of trying for a sibling, whether
Mhm.
their first time was through a reproductive endocrinologist help or not.
And I also think that's important. Women shouldn't just have to focus on their fertility. Like
Yeah,
there's so
like we're
many other ways that
multifaceted.
we,
Yeah.
yes, and we give so much to the world in so many different ways that I think it's important to acknowledge that, not just baby making, which it's in the South, it's very common. So it's
It's
been a journey
all
make also
it's
here.
about, okay? You don't have children and you live in the South? What is wrong with you?
I know we're literally the only one child
Get it
family, but
together, okay?
yes,
I
I know.
noticed that when we were there a couple weeks ago, I'm like,
Oh yeah.
"Hold on, wait a minute, like, are we the only ones with one child? Like, what's happening here?" Young
Yes.
and old people, it didn't matter who it was.
Mhm. Mhm.
It seemed like everybody had at least 2 or 3, and it's beautiful, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, I wish I could do it, and what's so
But
crazy now, with my son, I'm like, "How the hell would I even care for a second child?" He's got
yes.
so many energy. Oh my god, I'm in the gym
Yeah.
5 days a week just to keep up with him, okay? You guys are
Yes.
serious out here.
I think that's it too. Just realizing like, oh my God, maybe one was what I could handle. People say that God
Yeah.
gives you what you can handle. And with my husband's job and no family nearby, like there's
Right.
a reason. I
There's
really
a
think like,
reason.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
hard to hear, but like, I honestly like looking at it, like the bright side of
Because
things
your
the same way.
lifestyle. Yeah. You
Yeah.
guys are busy people. And then like you
Hmm.
said, with your husband's demanding
Yeah.
industry as a doctor,
I would be doing it all myself. I'm like, ooh, God,
yeah,
that seems
which is
really hard.
probably why he has never really pressured you about
Yeah.
having more because he knows that you're doing the all the work at home.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
doing the
I
brunt
do
of
the
the work.
dog, the house, the kid. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm
So
good. My
good,
plate is
yeah.
full and do my own
Shout out
things.
to hubby for being understanding.
Yeah.
Stand-up guy right there, I can tell. Haven't even met him. I know
Yeah.
it. Oh, but thank you, Kyla, my dear. This has been a
Yes.
blast. A
Thank
blast. I'm so
you.
glad we got to know you more. I got to know you more, and we finally got to
Yeah.
meet. What
Mhm.
would you say to other moms who are struggling for that sibling
Mhm.
and what helped you move through it?
Mhm. Yeah. I think give yourself that space and time to grieve. That was one thing I didn't really do. Like, I guess once I found out, get therapy, definitely. Let them, that's what my therapist said. She's like, you can grieve this loss. Like, take time, cry, like, let it out. Don't try to like hold it in. And I think also using a creative outlet, like you have the podcast, people do blogging. I wrote this book, people do art. Like, there's so many outlets to help process it. And even like get out in the world if that's what you want to do,
Yeah.
to share your
Yeah.
story. I think that's really helped me with turning this pain into a creative outlet has been great. But yeah, mom, be gentle on yourself. Like, it is a really hard process. It's not, some days it's fine, like we talked about, and some days it's hard, and just kind of acknowledging that, but trying to thrive as much as possible during it. Be present with your, if you have one child or your puppy
Mhm.
or your cat or whoever's in your life that loves you unconditionally.
Yeah.
Soak that all up because it goes quick. Time goes quick, and they get bigger. And enjoying that, your first child, if you have it, as
Yeah.
much as possible.
And where can we find you on Instagram, dear?
Yeah, so it's my name, Kyla _Saphir _books. And I'll spell that because it's a little unusual. Kyla's Kyla, Saphir's SAP as in Peter, HIR, and then _books. And my website's my name too, KylaSaphirBooks.com. I haven't got any creative names yet. I mean, I'm just starting this path.
Yeah, it's all right.
But yeah, my book's out the end of April. And then I'm having a book launch party, which is really fun, like in the beginning of May, which is on actually my daughter's due date. It was May 7th.
Aw.
So that'll be fun, because we won't have another like baby shower or sprinkle. So this is kind of a celebration
Yeah.
of this book baby that I'm giving birth to,
Right,
and
exactly. Yeah.
celebrating something. Yeah.
And you guys know where to find me on Instagram,
Yeah.
Infertility and Me Podcast, everywhere, anywhere you can think of. And yeah, that's it for
Get
today,
on
you
brighter
guys.
days. The book, yeah,
Yes,
this
brighter
summer.
days.
On brighter days. Yeah.
It'll be in the show details for you to tap and
Awesome.
go purchase and maybe purchase another one for somebody else that you know.
Yes.
So
Or
we
put it in
appreciate.
your free little library. That's what some
Yes,
people are doing. They're
indeed.
donating to them. Spread the word.
Yeah, yes. Please do support our girl Kyla in her
Thanks.
efforts to spread the word about being mom and dads of secondary infertility as well as one and done parents. And guess what, you guys? It's all okay. Everything. It's all right. Okay.
All
Whatever
good.
you choose to do. Whatever you choose to do. So we thank you again for being here, Kyla.
Yeah. Thanks for
Appreciate you so much.
you
And
too
that's it
soon.
for this week, friends. Peace and blessing.